Everyone thought Nikki Bella's WWE story was over, but what she just revealed about her life after retirement shocked even her closest fans. This isn't a comeback, and it's not what anyone expected. Nikki Bella's next move could change her legacy forever, and by the end of this video, you'll see why the Bella era is far from done. The lights of the arena have a specific way of fading. For years, Nicole Garcia, known to the world as Nikki Bella, lived in that blinding, electric white light. It was a space where noise was the only currency that mattered. If they cheered, you were winning. If they booed, you were winning. The only way to lose was silence. When she finally took off the boots, folded the gear, and walked away from the squared circle, the world assumed the silence would finally catch up to her. They assumed retirement meant a quiet fade into reality television, wine tastings, and the soft domestic rhythm of motherhood. They expected the fearless persona to be packed away in a box in the attic, a souvenir of a life lived at full volume. But the recent revelation that has sent shockwaves through the wrestling community and her fanbase suggests that the silence wasn't an ending. It was a canvas. While the world watched reruns of Total Divas and speculated about Hall of Fame speeches, Nikki was quietly, methodically deconstructing the very foundation of who people thought she was. The assumption was that her neck injury forced her out, that she was a tragic figure cut down in her prime, longing for one last match that her body wouldn't allow. That narrative is compelling. It's tragic. But as it turns out, it is also incomplete. The shock didn't come from a sudden announcement of a return match. It came from an admission that shattered the illusion of the happy retiree. Nikki revealed that the transition wasn't just about healing a broken neck. It was about healing a fractured identity. For over a decade, she had been a brand, a twin, a champion, and a reality star. But somewhere in that chaotic storm of accolades and cameras, the person Nicole had begun to suffocate. The plan she revealed wasn't about seeking more fame. It was about dismantling the Bella machine to find something raw and real underneath. Imagine a stick figure standing in the center of a vast, empty stage. For years, this figure has been adding layers, capes, belts, masks, glitter. The audience applauds the layers. But now, the figure starts taking them off. One by one, the crowd gets confused. They want the cape, they want the glitter. But the figure keeps stripping it all away until they are standing there, naked and vulnerable. This is the visual metaphor for Nikki's current journey. Her new path isn't a horizontal move to another entertainment sector. It is a vertical descent into the depths of vulnerability. She isn't planning to entertain us in the way we expect. She is planning to challenge the very industry that made her by exposing the cost of the fame she chased. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy with a plan that no one saw coming. A plan to rewrite the definition of success for every woman who ever steps between those ropes again. When the news broke not as a press release, but as a series of raw, unpolished admissions, the reaction was immediate and chaotic. In the world of wrestling, commentary, and social media discourse, there is usually a script for how fans react. If a wrestler returns, there is euphoria. If they leave, there is sadness. But this created confusion. The fanbase found themselves split down the middle, grappling with the cognitive dissonance that the internet wasn't ready to process. On one side, there were the die-hard loyalists, the Bella Army, who felt a protective surge. They saw this pivot not as a betrayal of the wrestling character, but as an evolution of the human being. However, the wider, more cynical wrestling world reacted with skepticism. Why would someone who built an empire on glamour and carefully curated reality TV drama suddenly pivot to something so gritty, so introspective, and frankly, so risky? The skepticism stems from years of conditioning. We are used to wrestlers working us. We are used to blurred lines between truth and fiction. So, when Nikki began speaking about the trauma of the industry, the loss of self, and her intention to use her platform to expose the darker underbelly of fame rather than celebrate it, many waited for the punchline. They waited for the merchandise link. They waited for the new show announcement. But the punchline never came. Instead, the emotional weight of her words began to sink in. We saw a ripple effect tear through the locker rooms of the industry. Current superstars, women who looked up to the Bellas as the gold standard of branding, suddenly had to question their own trajectories. If the woman who had it all, the titles, the shows, the famous, saying that it wasn't enough, that it actually took something vital from her, then what were they fighting for? It was a mirror held up to the industry, and the reflection wasn't pretty. The media chaos was palpable. Tabloids that usually ran stories about her outfits or relationships were suddenly forced to cover her discussions on mental health, identity crises, and the physical cost of making it. The narrative shifted from Nikki Bella, the star, to Nicole, the survivor. There was a tangible sense of unease among the powers that be. A silent star is a profitable star. A star who speaks about the hollow nature of the machine is a liability. By stepping outside the boundaries of what was expected by refusing to just be the legend, waving at the crowd, she disrupted the ecosystem. She wasn't just changing her career path. She was challenging the contract between the celebrity and the fan. She was asking us to stop consuming her life as entertainment and start witnessing it as a human struggle. The fans who wanted the glossy superstar were disappointed, but those who stayed witnessed the birth of something far more compelling. A woman reclaiming her own story from the millions of people who thought they wrote it for her. To understand the magnitude of this new direction, we must revisit the ghost that haunts every step of this journey. The injury. In the world of professional wrestling, injuries are badges of honor. They are scars you show off in bars, stories you tell on podcasts. But for Nikki, the neck injury that forced her retirement wasn't a badge, it was a guillotine. It severed her from the only life she knew how to live. We need to visualize the physical reality of this. Picture the spine, a delicate chain of pearls that holds a person upright. Now picture that chain cracking under the weight of expectations. For years, the narrative was that she fought to come back. She was fearless. She defied the doctors. And for a brief, shining moment, she did. She returned. She main evented. She proved the doubters wrong. But the recent revelations paint a darker, more honest picture of that time. It wasn't a triumph. It was a terrifying gamble. Nikki revealed that the decision to finally walk away wasn't made in a moment of peace, but in a moment of absolute terror. The realization that one wrong landing could leave her paralyzed, unable to hold her child, was the catalyst for everything that is happening now. This new chapter isn't just about post-retirement, it is a response to mortality. The plan she is unveiling is deeply rooted in the trauma of her body failing her. She isn't moving into this new spiritual and advocacy-based role because it's trendy. She is doing it because her body screamed stop, and for the first time, she listened. The emotional aftermath of that injury is the fuel for her current transformation. She spoke about the depression that followed the silence. When you are an athlete, your body is your tool. When that tool breaks, you feel useless. The shock regarding her plans comes from how she is repurposing that pain. She isn't hiding the injury anymore. She isn't pretending to be invincible. She is building her future on the foundation of her fragility. She is telling the world that it is okay to be broken. Her new mission involves mentoring the next generation, not on how to be stars, but on how to survive the stardom. She is using the ghost of her injury to scare the industry straight. It's a shift from the gladiator mentality, fight until you die, to a matriarchal mentality, live to tell the tale. This section of the story is heavy. It carries the weight of every bump, every surgery, and every sleepless night. It reveals that the smile she wore during her final run was a mask, and her current plans are the result of finally taking that mask off and letting the scars breathe. The injury didn't end her story. It forced her to start writing a real one. Perhaps the most heartbreaking and complex layer of this unfolding drama is the dynamic between the twins. For 30-plus years, Nikki and Brie wasn't just a description of two people. It was a singular noun. They were a package deal. They entered the world together, they entered the ring together, and they built an empire together. Their identities were so intertwined that fans often struggled to see where one ended and the other began. But Nikki's recent revelations and her drastic shift in life direction have created a visible, poignant divergence. This isn't a story of a feud. That would be too simple, too wrestling-centric. This is the quiet, aching story of growing up. As Nikki moves toward this radical transparency, shedding the Bella name and the gloss of celebrity to find Nicole, it inevitably changes the geometry of her relationship with Brie. Brie has always been the grounded one, the Earth Mother, the one who transitioned into domestic life with a grace that seemed to elude Nikki for years. Now, however, Nikki is diving into deep, sometimes dark, waters of self-discovery that Brie may not be part of. The emotional weight here lies in the separation. Imagine two lines that have run parallel for decades, touching constantly. Now, one line veers sharply upward, toward a new, unknown peak. The friction of that separation causes sparks. Reports and whispers suggest a supportive but difficult transition for the sisters. How do you support your twin when she is dismantling the very legacy you built together? When Nikki speaks out against the industry or sheds the Bella skin, she is also, inadvertently, critiquing the path Brie walked alongside her. We have seen moments of this tension play out not in shouting matches, but in the quiet pauses during interviews, the glances exchanged when the topic of the future comes up. Brie is content with the legacy they built. Nikki is restless, eager to redefine it. The fans feel this shift. The Bella army is watching two generals take different roads. One road leads to the comfort of the known, the celebration of what was. The other road, Nikki's road, leads into the fog of the unknown. It is a lonely path. The narrative here focuses on the bravery required to walk alone when you have spent your entire life as part of a pair. It explores the guilt Nikki likely feels for changing the script, and the unconditional love required from Brie to let her sister go where she cannot follow. This isn't just a career change, it's a severing of the psychic reliance that defined them. Nikki's new plan requires her to be a singular entity, and that is perhaps the most terrifying part of the reveal. The twin magic is gone, replaced by a solitary, human reality. So, what is the destination? After the shock of the announcement, the confusion of the fans, the pain of the injury, and the divergence from her sister, where does Nicole Garcia land? The twist, and the true depth of this story, is that everyone was looking for a job title, but Nikki was revealing a state of being. The fans expected her to announce a role as a general manager, a producer, or perhaps the owner of a wrestling promotion. Those are the traditional paths for a retired legend. But the reality is far more profound. Nikki Bella's next move is the complete rejection of the character that made her rich. Her plan is to become an advocate for the human being inside the performer. She is launching initiatives and platforms dedicated to the mental health and identity preservation of women in entertainment. She isn't trying to build the next WWE. She is trying to build a safety net for the women who will go through the grinder just like she did. The twist is that her legacy won't be defined by how long she held the Divas Championship. It will be defined by how many careers she saves from the burnout she experienced. This is the unseen consequence of her career. She realized that being fearless doesn't mean jumping off the top rope. It means admitting you are lost. By stripping away the Nikki Bella armor, she has become an architect for a new kind of strength. The video concludes not with a highlight reel of her best moves, but with a reflection on the power of walking away. The Bella era is far from done, but the definition of it has flipped. It used to mean dominance, luxury, and drama. Now it means resilience, authenticity, and healing. The fans didn't see this coming because they were watching a wrestling show, while Nikki was living a human tragedy and turning it into a triumph. As she steps out of the spotlight and into the shadows to work on this new mission, she becomes more powerful than she ever was in the ring. The twist is simple. Nikki Bella didn't retire to quit. She retired to finally start the fight that actually matters, the fight for herself and for every woman who comes after her. The screen fades to black, leaving the viewer with a single, lingering thought. Sometimes you have to kill your own myth to save your life. And that is a main event worth watching.